Hey there, it's Leona. Welcome to Zen Mindfulness Shodo. Today, we're gonna practice Shodo meditation while focusing on the Hiragana character for E. So, let's begin a beautiful journey together. When you write a character, imagine a square about the size of the character that you are gonna write like this. First, I'm gonna write it. Then I'm gonna explain the points and tips for writing the character beautifully in detail. Now let's explain the process. The first stroke starts from a point a bit higher than, and to the right of the center point of the top left square. The lower part of this first stroke is written at about 30 to 45 degrees. Place the brush at about this angle. Move it to the direction of lower right until the middle vertical line comes roughly in the middle of the stroke. At the end, lightly push the brush towards the tip without moving the position on the paper. Then, move the brush down to the left, from the starting point of the first stroke. The second stroke starts from a point a little bit lower than the center point of the top left square, or slightly to the left of that. The horizontal part curves slightly downward while moving upward to the right. It gradually gets thinner as it moves to the right, until the middle vertical line is roughly centered. Then place the brush at about a 45-degree angle, lightly pressing towards the tip to fix it in place. Next, draw downwards at about a 45-degree angle to a point slightly left of the second stroke's starting point. For reference, the space above the first stroke's starting point and below the lowest point of the second stroke should look about the same. After a slight pause, trace back up the lower half of the 45-degree line you just drew. When you reach the middle vertical line, curve downwards and draw vertically along it. When you reach about the same height as the lowest point on the left, curve to the right. As you move right, curve slightly downward while gradually thickening the line. This line can be parallel to the middle horizontal line, or rise slightly to the upper right. But avoid letting it slope downwards, as this would destabilize the character. One key point in writing this character is the relative positions of the first and second strokes. I'm gonna write an example here. When you write the first stroke like this, the second stroke might look like this. In this case, the first stroke aligns vertically with the starting point of the second stroke. There's too much space between the end point of the first stroke and the top horizontal part of the second stroke in this example, and that's also affecting the overall balance of the character. But in this example character, as compared to the sample character, the first stroke looks too far to the left in relation to the second stroke position. Ideally, the first stroke should be above the middle, or slightly to the right of the second stroke's horizontal part. Another important point is the angle of the 45-degree line in the second stroke. If it's too flat or too steep, it changes the overall expression of the character. For example, when the first stroke is like this, the second stroke might look like this. Or, I wrote extreme examples for you to see the difference more clearly, but the right one is too close to the left line of the square box, and it might be hard to see. Sorry. In the example on the left, the diagonal part of the second stroke is a bit flatter, or closer to the angle of the middle horizontal line, as compared to the one of the sample character. It's about 30 degrees. If you make this part like this, the second stroke part appears wider rectangular shape, and the entire character looks shorter. When you write the example character on the left in this square box, The diagonal part of the angle is closer to the middle horizontal line than the one of the sample character, so it goes downward to the left, like this. And it moves back up to the right until the middle of the diagonal part, and then goes down until about the same height as the left lowest point, and turns right. The space at the bottom of the square box is much larger than the one at the top. That will make the overall balance a bit off. If you write the angle of the diagonal part too steep like this, it's not completely parallel to the middle vertical line, but the angle is closer to it as compared to the one of the sample character. If you write like this, the space at the bottom, this space becomes too narrow, and the character loses balance and appears less stable. The height where you curve to the right is also crucial. I'm gonna write examples here and compare them. In the example on the left, it turned at a height lower than the bottom left point, and in the example on the right, it turned at a height higher than the lowest point on the left side. When you write like these, when the left and right lowest points are not at the same level, as compared to the one at the same level like the sample character, they might appear less stable. When turning down, avoid making it too round, as this can make the character look childish. For instance, if you curve like this, the character looks like a rounded style. When you are intentionally writing a childish, cute-looking character, you can curve here roundly. But if you want to write a more mature, adult-like character, curve here a little bit more sharply. Adjusting the sharpness of this curve can change the impression of the overall character. Finally, be careful not to let the final horizontal part slope downwards, as this can make the character look unstable. As if being pulled down to the right. These writing tips and techniques can be applied regardless of the size of the character you're writing, or the brush you're using. I've explained a lot of tips and points to write this character more neatly and beautifully. Try practicing while keeping in mind the tips and points you find most helpful. The key points and tips for writing hiragana neatly, as explained in the video, are concisely summarized in this book. Each page allows you to practice one character. If you're interested, please see the description. When you practice with a brush, I recommend that you place a few pieces of paper under the page that you're writing on, so that the ink doesn't bleed onto the page under it. Alright, let's get started.